The empty mansion. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 11 times, its deep resonance echoing through the cavernous spaces of Thornfield Estate. Oliver Blackwood looked up from his laptop, running a hand through his disheveled dark hair. Another night working until exhaustion, hoping it would bring dreamless sleep. "Mr. Blackwood?" A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to find Mrs. Hudson, his housekeeper, standing in the doorway of his home office, her expression a mixture of concern and resignation. "The new nanny has arrived. I've shown her to the quarters, but she requested to meet you tonight despite the hour." Oliver suppressed a sigh. This would be the fourth nanny in 8 months. None had managed to connect with Penny, his 5-year-old daughter who hadn't spoken a word since the night his wife Vanessa's helicopter had crashed in the Cascades 18 months ago. "Send her in," he said, closing his laptop. Moments later, a woman entered. She wasn't what he expected. No crisp uniform or stern expression that screamed professional childcare. Instead, she wore simple jeans and a blue sweater that matched her eyes. Her honey-brown hair was gathered in a loose braid that hung over one shoulder. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm Sophia Reed," she said, her voice surprisingly melodic. "Thank you for this opportunity." Oliver nodded, studying her. Her resume had been impeccable. Degrees in child development and music education. Recommendations from prestigious families, yet something about her seemed fragile, like fine porcelain with hairline cracks. "Mrs. Hudson has likely briefed you, but I should be clear," he said. "Penny requires special attention. She doesn't speak. Hasn't since the accident." "I understand," Sophia replied, holding his gaze. "Sometimes the heaviest words are the ones left unsaid." Something in her tone made him pause. "Your references were impressive, but they only went back 3 years. What did you do before that?" A fleeting shadow crossed her face. "I was someone else," she answered simply. "Life has a way of reinventing us when necessary." Her candor was unexpected, and Oliver found himself momentarily disarmed. "Penny will be your primary responsibility. She has tutors for academics, but struggles with social interaction and emotional regulation. I need someone who won't give up on her." "I don't believe in giving up on children, Mr. Blackwood," Sophia said, "or on anyone for that matter." The following morning, Oliver observed from his balcony as Sophia met Penny for the first time in the garden. His daughter sat motionless on the stone bench, her small face blank, strawberry blonde curls dancing in the breeze, the only part of her that seemed alive. Instead of immediately approaching, Sophia settled on the grass nearby and began unpacking items from a canvas bag, a small kaleidoscope, a jar of bubbles, and what appeared to be a tiny wooden music box. For 20 minutes, she didn't acknowledge Penny at all. She simply explored these objects with evident delight, occasionally humming to herself. The strategy was clear: create curiosity without pressure. Eventually, as Oliver had expected, Penny's gaze drifted toward the colorful soap bubbles floating across the garden. What he hadn't expected was when Penny silently rose and took 3 steps toward Sophia, the first voluntary approach to a new person since the accident. That evening, Oliver found Sophia in the kitchen preparing a cup of tea. The house staff had retired for the night, and the space felt oddly intimate in the dim lighting. "You did well today," he said. Sophia turned, startled. "Thank you. Penny is remarkable. How did you know to give her space like that?" She stirred her tea thoughtfully. "Some hearts are like shy woodland creatures. Rush toward them and they scatter. Remain still, with open hands, and they might approach on their own terms." Oliver leaned against the counter, suddenly curious about this woman who spoke in gentle metaphors. "And what about your heart, Miss Reed? Is it shy as well?" For a moment, something unguarded flickered in her eyes, a profound sadness that seemed bottomless, before she composed herself with a small smile. "My heart knows better than to wander too far these days," she answered, raising her cup in a slight toast before slipping past him toward the servants' wing. Later that night, unable to sleep, Oliver checked the security monitors, a habit formed during Penny's sleepwalking phase. To his surprise, he spotted a figure in the moonlit garden. Sophia sat alone on the same bench where Penny had been earlier, her shoulders shaking silently as she gazed up at the stars, tears streaming unchecked down her face. Oliver's finger hovered over the intercom button, then withdrew. Whatever ghosts haunted Sophia Reed, perhaps they weren't so different from his own. Whispers in the garden. 3 weeks after Sophia's arrival, Thornfield Estate had subtly transformed. The oppressive silence that once haunted its halls had given way to something gentler, a quiet anticipation, as if the house itself were holding its breath, waiting. Oliver noticed the changes first in Penny. While she still didn't speak, her eyes followed Sophia everywhere with a newfound alertness. She'd begun leaving small treasures, a perfect acorn, a blue jay feather, a smooth river stone, outside Sophia's door each morning. Communication in the language she could manage, but it was Sophia herself who most intrigued him. By day, she was warm sunshine, creating magical experiences for Penny, elaborate puppet shows, sensory gardens, and music therapy sessions that occasionally drew forth something almost like laughter from his daughter. By night, she was moonlight and shadows. 3 times now, Oliver had observed her midnight garden vigils through the security system. Each time she sat alone, sometimes crying, sometimes simply staring at the stars with such longing it made his chest ache to witness. On the 4th night, he finally ventured out. "The garden is beautiful at night," he said quietly. Approaching slowly to avoid startling her, Sophia quickly wiped her eyes, but didn't rise or flee. "Mr. Blackwood, I apologize if I'm overstepping boundaries." "Oliver," he corrected, sitting on the opposite end of the bench. "And no apology needed. The estate is meant to be enjoyed." A comfortable silence settled between them, punctuated only by the gentle chorus of night insects and distant owl calls. Oliver was struck by how natural it felt, sharing this moonlit moment with someone after years of isolation. "My mother believed souls who leave us too soon become stars," Sophia finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "As a child, I found that comforting. Now, I wonder if they're watching. If they're disappointed," Oliver studied her profile, silvered by moonlight. "Who would be disappointed in you?" Sophia closed her eyes. "Today marks 5 years since the accident. I was performing with the Philadelphia Symphony. Rising star pianist, according to the reviews." She held up her hands, and Oliver noticed for the first time the subtle scarring across her palms and fingers. "We were driving home after the performance. My parents, my younger sister, Julia. It was raining. The truck driver had fallen asleep." Her voice faltered. "I was the only survivor. 37 surgeries later, I could use my hands for daily tasks, but never again for concert piano." Understanding dawned on Oliver. "That's why your employment history has a gap." 2 years of physical therapy, followed by a complete identity collapse, she confirmed. "Who are you when everything that defined you is gone?" The person who emerged from that hospital wasn't Sophia Reed, acclaimed pianist. She was just broken. "Yet here you are," Oliver said softly, "helping my daughter piece herself back together when you could barely hold yourself together." Something in his tone made her turn to him. "We recognize our own kind, don't we? The walking wounded." Their eyes met, and Oliver felt a dangerous crack forming in the walls he'd built around himself. This woman understood loss in ways few others could. "Penny reminds me of Julia," Sophia admitted, the same thoughtful eyes. "Working with her feels like atonement somehow." "Atonement? For surviving?" "For losing myself afterward. For giving up." Sophia's hands trembled slightly. "Your daughter is teaching me as much as I'm teaching her. She still believes in magic despite everything." The following day brought an unexpected breakthrough. Oliver was concluding a video conference when he heard it, piano music drifting from the long, unused music room. Not a recording, but live playing, hesitant and imperfect. He found Sophia seated at the grand piano, Penny beside her. Sophia was guiding Penny's small hands through simple scales, her own fingers moving stiffly alongside. "It hurts," Sophia was saying gently to Penny, "but there's beauty in trying anyway. See?" She demonstrated a simple melody, wincing slightly but persisting. The resulting music was far from perfect, nothing like the virtuoso performances in her past, but hauntingly beautiful in its vulnerability. Oliver remained in the doorway, unnoticed, as Penny cautiously pressed a key on her own, then another. Her face showed intense concentration rather than her usual emptiness. When Sophia smiled encouragingly, Penny did something extraordinary. She leaned against Sophia's side in a gesture of pure trust and affection. That night at dinner, Oliver broke their usual silence. "I saw you at the piano today." Sophia looked up from helping Penny cut her chicken. "I hope that was all right." The music room was unlocked, and Penny seemed curious. "Vanessa was the musician in our family," Oliver said. "I kept meaning to find Penny a teacher, but after everything—" He trailed off. "Music can express what words cannot," Sophia said. "For both of you," Oliver studied her. "Does it hurt? Playing again?" "Yes," she answered honestly, physically and otherwise. But today was the first time in 5 years it hurt less than it healed. Later, after Penny was asleep, Oliver found himself drawn to his late wife's study. Untouched since her death, it remained exactly as Vanessa had left it. Financial reports beside fashion magazines, framed family photos, and half-finished notes about hotel renovations. He ran his fingers over her desk, remembering how she'd balanced motherhood with her role as marketing director for Blackwood Hotels. They'd been partners in everything until the corporate expansion that required her frequent travel. The same travel that had put her on that helicopter. For the first time, Oliver opened her desk drawer and removed her personal journal. He'd been unable to face it before. Inside, he found something unexpected. Vanessa's concerns about his emotional distance, her loneliness despite their success, her fears that Penny would grow up in a household where work always came first. "Oliver builds hotels for strangers to find comfort in. Yet our own home grows colder," she'd written 3 months before her death. The truth hit him with the force of physical pain. He'd been losing his family long before the accident took Vanessa away permanently. Dawn found him still in Vanessa's study, her journal closed beside him. His mind filled with uncomfortable revelations and the image of Sophia's hands, damaged but still creating beauty, guiding his daughter back to life. Melodies of healing summer unfurled across Thornfield Estate, painting the formal gardens in riots of color and warming the stone walls that had stood sentinel for generations. Within those walls, equally remarkable transformations were taking place. Penny, who had retreated so deeply into herself, was emerging day by day under Sophia's patient guidance. While still silent, she'd begun communicating through a system of hand gestures Sophia had developed. Not quite sign language, but a private vocabulary all their own. More surprisingly, Oliver found himself changing as well. He'd begun blocking off afternoons to join Penny and Sophia for what they called adventure hours, expeditions to the frog pond, cloud-watching picnics, and elaborate treasure hunts throughout the estate grounds. "You designed this whole scenario, didn't you?" Oliver asked one afternoon as they followed Penny's excited skipping along a trail of riddle-bearing, paper butterflies that somehow incorporated elements of the mathematics she'd been struggling with. Sophia smiled, tucking a wayward strand of honey-brown hair behind her ear. "Learning happens best through joy, not discipline. Besides, I had an excellent co-conspirator." She nodded toward Mrs. Hudson, who was pretending not to watch from the terrace, her usually stern expression softened by a small smile. "The entire household staff is under your spell," Oliver observed. "Even Gregory smiled yesterday. I wasn't sure his face could still do that." "Your employees love this family," Sophia replied. "They've just been waiting for permission to show it." The easy camaraderie that had developed between them was interrupted that evening by an urgent call from Oliver's executive team. BlackTech, his company's latest venture into sustainable hotel technology, was facing a major setback with their solar storage system, just weeks before the grand unveiling at the International Hospitality Expo. "The demonstration models are overheating," explained Russell Bennett, his CTO, on the video call. "If we can't stabilize the system, we'll have to withdraw from the showcase." Oliver ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "That's not an option. This technology is the cornerstone of our environmental initiative. How long to fix it?" 4 weeks minimum, Russell said grimly. "We don't have the engineering team to—" 2 weeks, came a quiet voice from behind Oliver, He turned to find Sophia in the doorway, a sleeping Penny in her arms. She'd clearly been on her way to put his daughter to bed when she overheard the conversation. "Excuse me?" Oliver said, confused. "I believe I can help solve your problem in 2 weeks," Sophia repeated, her cheeks coloring slightly. "I have some experience in thermal regulation systems." Oliver stared at her, then turned back to the screen. "I'll call you back, Russell." After settling Penny in bed, they reconvened in his office, where Sophia reluctantly elaborated. "Before music, there was engineering. My undergraduate degree is actually in mechanical engineering with a focus on sustainable energy systems. I only pursued music professionally later." "That wasn't in your file," Oliver said, still processing this revelation. "It wasn't relevant to childcare," she replied with a small shrug. "But I've kept up with developments in the field." "It's a hobby? A hobby?" Oliver repeated incredulously. "And you think you can fix a breakthrough technology that my team of experts can't stabilize?" Something flickered in Sophia's eyes, a flash of the confidence that must have once defined her. "I don't think, Mr. Blackwood, I know. Your system is likely experiencing thermal runaway during energy transfer. The solution isn't in the battery composition. It's in the charge control algorithm." The following days revealed yet another side of Sophia. By morning, she remained Penny's devoted nanny. By afternoon, while Penny napped, she transformed into a brilliant engineer, working remotely with Russell's team to redesign BlackTech's control systems. On the 7th day, Russell called Oliver directly. "Whatever you're paying that nanny, double it," he said, sounding both impressed and slightly disgruntled. "Her cooling circuit redesign just passed all our stress tests. We're back on schedule for the expo." That evening, Oliver found Sophia in the garden, gently swinging with Penny on the wooden swing he'd recently installed at her suggestion. "Russell tells me you're a genius," he said. Sophia blushed. "I just applied some basic thermodynamic principles that were being overlooked." "Why didn't you tell me?" "About your engineering background?" She was quiet for a moment. "After the accident, I couldn't bear anything that reminded me of who I used to be. Music was obvious. My hands made that choice for me. But engineering, that was the path my father had encouraged. Continuing felt like a betrayal after losing him. And now? Now I realize that carrying forward what they taught me might be the best way to honor them." She looked down at Penny, who was contentedly tracing patterns on Sophia's skirt with her finger. "Your daughter taught me that. Some broken things aren't meant to be discarded, just reimagined into something new." Later that night, after both Penny and Sophia had gone to bed, Oliver found himself restlessly pacing his office. Something had shifted between them, a boundary crossed, or perhaps a wall lowered. He pulled up her original employment file, searching for anything he might have missed. Her references were impeccable, yet began only after her reinvention. On impulse, he searched her name online, adding pianist to the query. The results painted a picture of the woman Sophia had been before. Youngest winner of the Clement International Piano Competition. Lauded for her transcendent technique and emotional depth, featured soloist with orchestras across 3 continents. Then, the accident headlines, Rising Star Pianist Soul. Survivor in family tragedy, followed by sparse updates about her, condition and eventual disappearance from the music world. Most revealing was a video from her final performance, the night of the accident. Sophia, resplendent in midnight blue, playing Rachmaninoff with such passion it seemed her very soul flowed through her fingers. Her face transported, luminous with joy, Oliver stared at the frozen image, understanding now what she had lost. Not just family, but purpose, identity, and the purest expression of herself, the woman who now gently guided his daughter's hands on piano. Keys bore the same face but carried herself entirely differently, as if perpetually braced against an invisible wind. Yet in recent weeks, he'd glimpsed moments when that former radiance shone through. He closed his laptop, a decision crystallizing. Sophia had begun the painful work of reclaiming her gifts. Perhaps it was time he followed her example. The storm between us, the International Hospitality Expo in Chicago, marked Oliver's first extended absence from Thornfield since Sophia's arrival. Despite his reluctance to leave Penny, the successful unveiling of Black Tech's solar system, now featuring Reed cooling technology, demanded his presence. "It's only 3 days," Sophia assured him, helping pack his suitcase while Penny solemnly handed him items she deemed essential: her favorite stuffed rabbit, a crayon drawing of the three of them, and a polished stone from their garden adventures. Oliver accepted each with appropriate gravity. "I've arranged for Mrs. Hudson to assist with overnight duties," he told Sophia. "I don't expect you to be on call 24/7. "We'll be fine," Sophia smiled, gently redirecting Penny from adding a potted succulent to his luggage. "Won't we, sweet pea?" Penny nodded, then stunned them both by reaching up to wrap her arms around Oliver's neck in a fierce hug. It was the most demonstrative she'd been since before the accident, and Oliver felt his throat constrict with emotion. Over Penny's head, his eyes met Sophia's. "Thank you," he mouthed silently. The expo proceeded brilliantly, with Black Tech's innovation drawing attention from sustainable development investors worldwide. Oliver found himself repeatedly crediting a brilliant consultant for the breakthrough, careful to respect Sophia's privacy while ensuring she received professional recognition. On the final evening, amidst a celebratory dinner with his executive team, Oliver's phone chimed with a video call from Thornfield. "Everything okay?" he answered, heart racing at the unexpected contact. Sophia's face appeared slightly flushed. "Everything's wonderful, actually. We have something to show you." The camera panned to Penny, seated at the piano, small face intense with concentration. Then, as Oliver watched in disbelief, his silent daughter began to play. A simple melody, carefully picked out with one finger, but unmistakably music. That's beautiful, Penny," he managed, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Penny looked directly at the camera, and for the first time in 18 months, smiled a real smile that reached her eyes. When the call ended, Oliver sat motionless, champagne forgotten, as his team tactfully gave him space to compose himself. Something fundamental had shifted in his absence. Penny was healing, and with that realization came another. His feelings for Sophia had grown, far beyond gratitude or professional respect. The revelation was terrifying. He returned to Thornfield the following afternoon to find the household in unexpected disarray. Mrs. Hudson met him at the door, face tight with concern. "Thank goodness you're back, sir." "There's been an incident." Oliver's blood ran cold. "Penny?" "Penny's fine," Mrs. Hudson assured him quickly. "It's Ms. Reed. A man arrived claiming to be her fiancé. They're in the east sitting room now." Oliver found them as indicated, Sophia standing rigid by the fireplace, face pale, while a well-dressed man with calculated charm occupied the center of the room as if he owned it. "Ah, the illustrious Oliver Blackwood," the man said, rising smoothly. "Ethan Harrington. I apologize for arriving unannounced, but when one's fiancé disappears for months, certain formalities must be overlooked. We are not engaged." "Ethan," Sophia said, voice steady despite her evident distress, "I made that abundantly clear before I left." "Before you ran away, you mean?" Ethan corrected with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Temporary confusion, darling. Your trauma counselor warned me you might experience episodes." Oliver studied the man carefully. "Ms. Reed seems quite lucid to me, and she's made her position clear. I think it's best you leave." Ethan's smile hardened. "Do you know who she is?" Who her family was? He turned to Sophia. "Does your employer know you're Sophia Reeves, daughter of Edward Reeves, whose technology patents are still generating millions? Patents now controlled by your only living relative, me, your father's brother and legal guardian after your parents' death?" "Guardian until I turned 25, Sophia corrected, lifting her chin. "Which happened 6 months ago. The trust transferred to me fully." "A trust you've ignored completely," Ethan countered. "Millions sitting untouched while you play nanny. Your father would be appalled." "My father would be appalled that you're trying to force me to sign over control of his life's work to your investment group," Sophia said, color returning to her cheeks. "Which is why I left." Understanding dawned on Oliver. This wasn't about romance. It was about money and control. Mr. Harrington, Oliver said coolly, I suggest you leave voluntarily before I have security remove you. Miss Reed is under my employment and protection. Ethan's charming facade dissolved. Protection from what? Her obligations? Her heritage? Or perhaps from accepting her role in what happened to her family? Sophia flinched visibly. That's right, Ethan pressed. Cruel now. Does he know you were driving that night, Sophia? That your sister and parents died because their talented, perfect daughter was too tired to call a car service after her big performance? That's enough, Oliver said sharply. But the damage was done. Sophia had gone completely white, tears streaming silently down her face. My lawyer will be in contact, Ethan said, retrieving his coat. Convenient as this hiding place has been, there are legal matters that require your attention, Sophia. The Reeves legacy doesn't disappear just because you changed your last name. After he left, Oliver approached Sophia cautiously. Are you all right? No, she answered honestly, voice barely audible. I'll pack my things. Pack? Why would you? Because everything he said is true, she interrupted. I was driving. I changed my name. I've been hiding from responsibilities I was too broken to face. She looked up at him, anguished. I never lied about who I am, but I didn't tell you everything either. We all have parts of ourselves we protect, Oliver said gently. You don't need to leave, don't I? Sophia wiped her tears. Penny has made such progress. She needs stability, not someone whose past can come crashing in at any moment. And you, what about me? You deserve someone whole, Oliver, not someone held together with scar tissue and borrowed courage. Oliver stepped closer. Is that what you think I want? Someone undamaged? If so, you've been paying very little attention. I can't stay, she whispered. Not with these feelings. Not when I still wake up some days unsure if I deserve to be alive when they aren't. The raw honesty hung between them. Oliver had spent 18 months building walls around his grief. Sophia had spent 5 years running from hers. Both approaches had failed spectacularly. Running didn't heal you before, he said finally. Why would it now? Before she could answer, a small sound from the doorway drew their attention. Penny stood there, clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide with distress. Sophia immediately knelt to her level. It's okay, Sweet Pea. Just grown-up problems. Nothing for you to worry about. But Penny shook her head vehemently, then did something that stunned them both into silence. Stay, she said, the single word raspy from disuse but unmistakable. Please stay. Symphony of second chances. The first word Penny spoke became a watershed moment, not just for her recovery, but for the three of them as an unlikely family unit. In the days following Ethan's unwelcome visit, Penny began speaking more. Single words at first, then simple phrases, as if a dam had broken. She was waiting for something important enough to say, Dr. Westfield, her speech therapist, explained during his weekly visit. Often with selective mutism following trauma, the child's first words come at a moment of emotional significance. Significance indeed, thought Oliver, watching as Penny and Sophia planted autumn flowers in the garden, their heads bent together in quiet conversation. His daughter had sensed Sophia's imminent departure and found her voice specifically to prevent it. The legal complications from Ethan's claims required attention, however. Oliver arranged for his personal attorney, Eleanor Winters, to review Sophia's situation regarding the Reeves Technology Trust. Your uncle has been playing a sophisticated game, Eleanor explained, spreading documents across Oliver's office table where the three adults sat. He's been representing himself to the board as your de facto proxy while claiming to your trust administrators that you were emotionally unfit to manage your inheritance. Can he do that? Sophia asked, frowning. Not legally, no. But you've been unavailable, Eleanor said diplomatically, and grieving people are vulnerable to manipulation. So what happens now? Oliver asked. Now, Eleanor said, smiling slightly, Ms. Reeves asserts her rightful control. Your father's patents are revolutionizing energy storage worldwide. Companies, including yours, Oliver, have been licensing the technology through Ethan's management company, but all profits rightfully belong to Sophia. The revelation that Oliver's own company had unwittingly been part of Ethan's scheme added another layer of complexity to their already complicated relationship. For days, Sophia withdrew into quiet contemplation, spending hours reviewing the legacy her father had left, one she'd been too consumed by grief to acknowledge. Meanwhile, Autumn painted Thornfield in amber and crimson. One evening, Oliver found Sophia in Vanessa's study, which he'd offered for her use while handling the trust transition. "You're working late," he observed, setting down a cup of tea beside her. "There's so much to understand," she said, gesturing to the technical documents surrounding her. "My father created something remarkable, clean energy solutions that could help millions. And I've been ignoring it all." "You were surviving," Oliver said simply. "No one can judge how another person processes grief." She looked up at him, searching his face. "Yet you judge yourself harshly enough for both of us." The observation hit uncomfortably close to home. Since reading Vanessa's journal, Oliver had been re-examining the years before her death. His gradual emotional withdrawal, his refuge in work, his failure to prioritize what truly mattered. "Penny asked about her mother today," Sophia said quietly. "She wanted to know if it was okay to be happy sometimes even though she's gone." Oliver's chest tightened. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that love doesn't end when someone leaves us. It transforms like energy, cannot be created or destroyed, only changed from one form to another." Sophia smiled sadly. "I told her that her mother's love is still here, in the happy moments, in the person she's becoming." "Thank you," Oliver said, voice rough with emotion, "for giving her what I couldn't. You've given her consistency, Oliver, security. You stayed when it would have been easier to lose yourself in work completely." She hesitated. "Vanessa would be proud of you." The mention of his late wife's name no longer brought the sharp pain it once had. Instead, there was a melancholy acceptance, the recognition of a chapter completed but not forgotten. "I've been thinking about what happens next," Sophia said, changing the subject. "The trust needs active management. The Reeves Foundation has been dormant too long." Oliver felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "You're leaving." "I'm considering options," she corrected gently, "including establishing the Foundation's headquarters locally, if that would be acceptable to you." Hope sparked unexpectedly. "Acceptable? Sophia, that would be—" A crash from upstairs interrupted them, followed by Penny's frightened cry. They raced upstairs to find her bedroom window shattered, glass scattered across the floor, and Penny huddled in the corner of her bed. "Someone was there," she whispered, pointing to the now broken window. "A man's face." Security footage later confirmed their worst fears. Ethan had returned, this time attempting to document Penny's condition as evidence of an unsafe environment to bolster his case against Sophia. "This ends now," Sophia said, face set with determination Oliver had never seen before. "I've been running and hiding for 5 years. I won't have him threatening this family, your family." "Our family," Oliver corrected quietly, "if you want it to be." The legal confrontation that followed became headline news. Reeves heiress emerges to reclaim tech empire, and Blackwood-Reeves alliance reshapes sustainable energy sector. Eleanor's meticulous preparation, combined with evidence of Ethan's trespassing and attempted harassment, resulted in a decisive legal victory. The Winter Gala, celebrating the official launch of the Reeves Foundation, marked Sophia's first public appearance since the accident. The grand ballroom of Blackwood's flagship Chicago hotel glittered with celebrities, tech innovators, and environmental advocates. "Nervous?" Oliver asked, adjusting his bow tie as they prepared to make their entrance. Sophia smoothed her emerald gown, a far cry from the simple clothes she'd arrived in nearly a year ago. "Terrified," she admitted. "But the good kind of terrified. The kind that means you're fully alive." Penny, resplendent in her first formal dress, twirled between them. "You look like a princess, Sophia." "Well, you look like a queen," Sophia replied, bending to adjust Penny's headband. "Remember, just the first hour. Then Mrs. Hudson will take you upstairs for the sleepover with your cousins." Oliver watched them, the 2 people who had brought his empty mansion back to life, and felt a certainty he hadn't experienced in years. Later, after Penny had been whisked away to the children's suite and the formal speeches concluded, Oliver led Sophia onto the dance floor. As they moved together through the waltz, he finally asked the question that had been waiting since that first night he'd seen her crying in the garden. "That night, under the stars, you said you were someone else before. Who are you now, Sophia Reeves?" She considered this, her blue eyes reflecting the chandeliers above. "I'm the sum of all my broken pieces and everything beautiful that grew in the cracks," she answered. "I'm a daughter who survived, a guardian who protected, a musician who found new melodies, an engineer who remembered her purpose." Her hand tightened in his, "and a woman who learned that loving again isn't betrayal. It's the bravest form of healing." "In that case," Oliver said, guiding her toward the terrace doors and the private garden beyond, "I have something to ask you." Under the winter stars, with snow dusting the formal hedges and their breath-forming clouds in the cold air, Oliver Blackwood, who had once sealed his heart behind walls of grief and work, knelt before Sophia Reeves. "We've both lived through losses that should have broken us permanently," he said, holding her scarred hands in his. "Instead, we found each other in the wreckage. You brought music back to Thornfield. You helped Penny find her voice. And somewhere along the way, you taught me that the most important blueprints aren't for hotels or technology, but for building a life worth living." Tears shimmered in Sophia's eyes, but unlike the first tears he'd witnessed, these held joy alongside remembered sorrow. "Sophia Reeves, will you make our temporary family permanent? Will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered, the pianist's damaged hands cradling his face with infinite tenderness. 1,000 times yes. From the terrace above, Penny watched her father and Sophia embrace, snowflakes catching in their hair like stars fallen to earth. For the first time since losing her mother, the world felt right again, not the same as before, but somehow more complete, as if all their broken pieces had finally found where they belonged. In the silence of the winter garden, three souls once fractured by circumstance began the delicate, beautiful work of becoming whole again, together.